I first read The God of Small Things while backpacking in Nepal. It was in 2019. I picked it up from a small bookshop in the packed touristy streets of Kathmandu. It was a poetic book, full of sensory detail. But I didn't take in much of the storyline. My mind held the lingering sense of a river, a time, a place in India, children, and a mother's suffering. Indian history to a degree, determining the destiny of her characters. I had read the book absent-mindedly, distracted by the wonders of travel, but I knew it was a special book. If I hadn't felt it, I knew it from the cover declaring that Roy had received the Booker Prize in 1997. But I did feel it. These days, I feel the weight of the world on me. It's not as if there are many signs of hope in what's happening in the world, and I'm no longer lost in the grandeur of mountains and the wonders of quaint cafes and bookstores on the skirts of the Himalayas. I have a proper job. And of course, like everyone else, I'm glued to my phone for too many of my free hours. But I want to share how Arundhati Roy's memoir, Mother Mary Comes to Me, has made me feel a little better. Bear with me. I've gone from backpacker teacher in Southeast Asia to something of a proper teacher of literature in Shanghai. I now read more carefully, and I love to do so. Last year, in 2024, I reread The God of Small Things, closely analyzing lines and making sense of what had initially seemed chronologically confusing. It's in many ways a depressing book. I noticed this as I went over the themes of abuse and inequality in the novel with my students. But Roy excels at producing all that a creative writer should produce in the way of techniques, devices, and perhaps topics. The work is full of personification, colorful descriptions, free indirect speech, and interesting similes. She speaks for the weak, the oppressed, and those discriminated against due to the arbitrariness of a country's or a people's past. So this leads to my interest in her memoir, Mother Mary Comes to Me, published on the 2nd of September, 2025. Due to the beauty of her writing and its consistent ethical weight, I want to consume anything she writes. It's rare that I read something just out, yet to be matured, unverified as worthy of hours of concentration. The classics of literature are safer. It's rare, too, that I pay little consideration to the price. But with my current financial security, £10.99 for the Kindle edition was fine. The issue is that I'm buying too many books these days. I began her memoir with excitement. How would she stir me with her literary craft? How would she influence my mind with her ethics, which permeate everything she writes, whether an essay or a novel? I found that Arundhati Roy's mother was a lion, sometimes a devil. She was powerful, regal, cruel too. Her mother was a founder of a school, fighter for women's inheritance rights, asthmatic, glutton, lifelong learner, carer, picker-upper of those in need, but punisher of her own children. Surely some of this strength had been passed down to the writer. Mother Mary Comes to Me shows Roy as more radical than I had expected. She explains in the memoir that she wanted to avoid the gilded cage, which I take to be the cage of the praise of others. After winning the Booker Prize, she damaged her reputation, annoyed people, by fighting for some unpopular cause or another. Her attempt to stop a dam flooding a valley and displacing masses of people. The article she wrote criticizing a Channel 4 film which indulged too much in the rape of a woman who now did not consent to the film. The multitude of other fearless things she wrote. Brave would be more apt than fearless. Who doesn't worry about consequences? But the crowd will make you captive. You must disappoint them. Do something outrageous and brave. I knew there was plenty of that spirit in her, but I didn't know the extent of it. This memoir shows her walking with Naxalites, Maoist rebels, for 2 weeks in the jungle. She then wrote a long essay about the experience. After the memoir, I was inspired to buy My Seditious Heart a collection of her essays. I wanted to see how far she went and what her sentiments were. It was her cruel mother who drove her to greatness. If she doesn't say this in the memoir, it follows like the conclusion of a logical syllogism. Sometimes I think too that it was her beauty and stubbornness of character and how this mix attracted her partner who had connections and a pathway for her talent to unfold and be found. Is this something like jealousy speaking? I want to be honest about what makes greatness. It's a combination of factors. For example, I muse on how fortunate she was to have had the manuscript for The God of Small Things passed through Patrick French's hands. He was another wonderful author. I had read Tibet and Young Husband, the Last Colonial Adventurer. Is it wrong to muse on my hope to write something worth the attention of someone like that? But Roy deserves the path she forged, and the one which opened up to her by good fortune. Beauty of mind, of character, of an ethical bent, and an unwillingness to join the herds. These things are charming. I'm charmed. But let me go back to her first novel, the door opener to her fame as a writer. She had written scripts before, she had made a living, but The God of Small Things was like an explosion. She had blown the bloody doors off, as the gangsters had done in The Italian Job. There was no going back. When I taught The God of Small Things to my 12th grade literature students, I hadn't known how close the material was to her own life and upbringing. Let me go through a few elements of that first of her two novels. There are two main periods in the story. The time when the two protagonists, Esther and Rahel, the dizygotic twins, were 7, and the later time when they were 31. We're thrown back and forth between these significant periods. Each period itself is a day or two in duration. It was much easier to read when I had this clearly in my mind. Having read the memoir, I now understood that to some degree Esther, the male twin, was inspired by Roy's real brother. Rahel, the female twin, has something of Roy in her. We learn early in the story of a drowning. Sophie Moll, visiting from England, is the daughter of the twins' uncle, Chaco. We sense that the twins and their mother, Amu, are somehow to blame, or at least perceived to be blameworthy, for they are ostracized at the funeral. The story charts the elements of history which led to this death, and not only this death, others too. This is what Roy seems to want to get at. The cruelty of historical forces, sometimes in the form of laws which thwart the blossoming of natural love, and which can lead to death of the heart and the body. The memoir tells us that Chaco is loosely based on Roy's uncle. We get no sense that Sophie Moll was inspired by a real person. She helps create the plot. Amu, the tragic mother of the twins, Roy suggests, was not inspired by her real mother, even if her mother liked to think so. Central to the story is Veluta, an untouchable, a worker at the family's pickle and preserve factory, which Chaco runs. Roy's uncle did run a factory. Veluta is too confident. He lacks this subservience of a Padawan. Amu, the twins' mother, loves him. He loves her. This is their downfall. This is why Amu is ostracized and blamed at the funeral. History and the love laws, as they have come down to the citizens of Ayamenam in Kerala, South India, forbid it. To me, Veluta is the Christ of the story. He is the Michelangelo, the pure spirit, the genius. Roy tells us in her memoir of how a reporter once asked her mother whether she herself had had an affair like this. "Why? Don't I look charming enough to have had such an affair?" was her defensive reply. There is no suggestion in the memoir that Veluta is inspired by a real person, except that perhaps he is inspired by her own erotic past. She does not say such things, but Roy perhaps exoticizes the untouchables, exoticizes, anyway, this character of hers. She has a right to do so. She is the maker of this world, crafting something lasting out of the world she grew up in. To me, finding these half connections, these denials of connection, these possibilities. It made the world she made with her imagination more interesting. Mother Mary comes to me, brings her novels more to life, though they were fully alive already. Kerala, her childhood home, is shown in all its brokenness and beauty. The brokenness makes up large chunks of the novel. The beauty is in the poetic prose. Her memoir kept me captivated throughout. If I try to think why, it's perhaps that she tells us how bad her mother was early on. You read on to see why Roy makes such claims. You also read on for the character arc that is evident in Roy herself. For although her mother was cruel and unloving at times, although she could be brutal, although the daughter didn't return to her mother for 7 years, she retains a love and admiration for her, and this carries right through the book. It has grown even stronger by the end. We are left knowing that her mother was a founder of a school, fighter for women's inheritance rights, asthmatic, glutton, lifelong learner, carer, and picker-upper of those in need, but punisher of her own children. But more than this, we know her pain when dealing with her death. In life, Mary Roy was certainly proud of her daughter, but Arundhati Roy praises and criticizes her in equal measure, which gives the whole book a balanced effect. If I'm honest, I think seeing this rounded character, her mother, made me like her regardless of her dark side. I think this is what Roy was ultimately trying to convey. The daughter loved the complex character of her mother, and we should too, regardless of the darkness that often acts as a contrast, enhancing the light. It's bloody hard to be something in this world, and more so in a world which expects women to be subservient. Mary, the mother, wasn't, and Arundhati, the daughter, will not be. In all, Roy has shown me again her own moral and intellectual worth, and to some degree she's cheered me up. She's shown that there are still good people in the world, and even when people are not entirely good, they can be formidable and do great things.